So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, students, wonderful students, proud parents. It is my greatest honor to be here on the YOLA send-off stage, sharing with you guys about what I do, what my colleagues do in our capacity as teachers for our students at YOLA. I say that it is an immense honor because given my sparse academic achievements and my so-called YOLO lifestyle in my early 20s, it's kind of hard for me to have anything positive, any sort of positive example to give to my students. What I actually do in class is tell them about the times that I messed up and show them what not to do. That's what I mostly do. However, there is one thing that I think I'm quite decent at, which is getting into flow. Now, the concept of getting into flow is not new, is a very ancient phenomenon. We often associate it with artists and sportsmen and craftsmen doing their thing. So if you think of Kobe Bryant shooting three-pointers, 5 of them in a row, right? He can pretty much tell you that the rim of the hoop is 1 inch off. That's how much of an expert he is. Think of Yo-Yo Ma doing his thing on the cello, right? Think of, what's his name? I forgot. Rafael Nadal doing a 15-shot rally with Federer. So you think of those people like that when they get into flow. But it's not that hard to get into flow. Starting in the 1970s, Hungarian-American psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, he started learning about the phenomenon of getting into flow and the psychology of the people who constantly get into flow. And this is what he found out. Here we have a diagram. On the x-axis, you have the skill level, low and high. Right here, on the vertical axis, you have the challenge level of the task that you are doing. So when you start off something, your skill level is pretty low. If the task is too high, is too challenging, you get anxious, you get worried. If you've learned something long enough, your skill level gets a bit high, but you are given some task that is too low, then you get bored. You don't care about that thing at all. The ideal spot is when your skill level is sufficiently as high as the challenge level of the task at hand. Oh, and one more thing. You need to get constant feedback from whatever it is that you are doing. You need to know when you perform an action whether it produces a good or a bad result. And you need to get rid of any sort of distraction, or else you break your focus. So I try to duplicate that in my classroom. I try to get that for my students. And here is a video of my students in flow. It's nothing fancy. This is not Kobe Bryant shooting three-pointers. This ain't no Rafael Nadal. It's just him on his computer doing a simple vocab game. And he's at 65%. But he's super focused because the task gives him constant feedback. He knows that he's getting better and better by the moment. All right, so that's pretty nice and all. But as a teacher, what do I do to further help my students? I bring 2 things to my classroom. First one, this basket. When you enter my class, my phone, whether it's a smartphone or a dumb phone, doesn't matter, it goes in the basket. Same thing with your phones. Everybody's phone in my classroom go into my basket. And then there's a squeaky hammer, my hammer of Thor, my Mjolnir. I give that, so sometimes to vent out my frustration when students are not listening, but most of the time I use it to give them constant feedback. If they're doing the exercises, I'll walk around. If they're doing something wrong, you're doing something wrong. If you're doing something right, good job. Just like that. And so my students, our students, they have come a long way. They have produced great feats of academic excellence. And I'm really, really proud of them. A couple of years ago, I had the honor of teaching an SAT student. She was a budding writer. She was contributing to a number of teenage magazines. And she was also publishing a bunch of short story collections. Now she was still having problem with the new SAT essay. So she came to me after one class, and I spent a couple of sessions with her and her classmates, walking them through how to analyze the passage that you have to read for the SAT essay and how they should approach it. She then came home and then wrote a bunch of practice essays and sent them to me for feedback. And notice her score. This is her actual score. No, not the total score, the essay score. She got 8 for reading, 7 for analysis, and 8 for writing. Guess what I got? 6 for reading, 8 for analysis, and 6 for writing. My ego was bruised, but I'm really, really glad for her. I'm really glad for her, and I'm really proud of her. She then worked on a series of her admission essays, which I gave her feedback as well. And she was kind enough to allow me to have permission to use her essays to pass it on to future students, anybody who was interested in taking the SAT essay as well as acing the admission process. My other students, my current students, they enjoy the vocab games in my class. They enjoy the interaction, the rapport, the bantering on and off classes. So this is well, 2 pictures of a messenger conversation with a current student of mine. As you can see, he, if you recognize his name, don't say anything. As you can see, he kind of stayed up pretty late, well past midnight, and he was working on one of those practice tests. And he took the photo of his answers, the question and all, and then sent it to me asking for clarification on some of the answers. And as you can see, he was quite formal. He said, "Does it have anything to do with my stubborn ignorance, or just because the test itself is lame? And thank you. I look forward to your enlightenment." Overly formal. But this kid, I am just happy to have him in my class for that level of dedication. And I'm really looking forward to the growth of this young man. I want to see how far along he can go on his path as a scholar. So guys, that is my take on what I do, what my colleagues do in our capacity as teachers for you guys at YOLA. We eliminate distraction. We create a fun and positive environment, and we constantly push our students forward. All we want for them is to be the best that they can be, to love learning for the sake of learning itself, and to grow into men and women who are not afraid to give back, to pay it forward. And all it takes is to learn how to start getting to flow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan, for your inspiring story.